Welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I'm thrilled to be joined by Dr. Allan Colman, as a business development executive speaker and author, CEO of the Closers Group Business Development Advisory. Colman has spent more than 3 decades helping law firms, professional service firms generate more revenue, which is something everybody wants to do. That's why I'm so excited to talk about his new book, The Revenue Accelerator, 21 Boosters to Launch Your Startup. Allan, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. So I know all too often entrepreneurs are so gung-ho on building their new product or service that they don't take time to think about how they're going to finance, market, and sell it. And definitely right now, especially at the end of the year, this is so critical because we know this statistic that there is only 20% on average, 20% of a survival rate of new startups. So again, Allan, what major mistakes do you see that startups and new businesses frequently make? And what does your book sort of talk about as solutions?
Well, we offer the major observation from many of the people we've interviewed who are entrepreneurs, startups, professors, and so on. The single biggest mistake startups make is not trying to see if there's a market for their product or their service. And they get an idea, they start working on it, have no idea if there's even a market for it. And then what follows is, if there is a market, at what point do you start developing the need for financing? How do you provide sales and sales training? When do you put into that? Are you applying for funds? And do you know how to put together a business plan, which most people who are startups don't? And so those are the most common mistakes. And in the Revenue Accelerator, we have specific chapters specifically on how to overcome some of those obstacles, beat some of the bumps in the road, and what the positives are that you can look for and build on.
Sure. And I'm particularly concerned about those early stage ventures because from what I understand, Allan, is that there's a massive failure rate that exists for those folks at that stage. How do you deal with that? And I know that your book, again, is not really just a book because it's 21 boosters to launch your startup. You provide real practical advice that I know you speak about and you teach about at California State University. So what sort of advice do you have for early stage ventures?
2 things. One, not make sure you look ahead at the market that you're going to be dealing with. And 2 is, if you've got contacts, if you have relationships, use them and build on them. And I don't mean use them in the pejorative sense. If you're starting to develop something, test the ideas on people you know. If you're active in your community or chambers of commerce, or if you're in an education, or especially nonprofits, by the way, one of the things that we spend time with is how they can take the same steps that businesses use and grow as well. And, some simple kinds of advice are: understand the difference between sales and marketing. And to many startups, they think they're the same thing, and they're starting off to sell without having either a product or even a marketing plan. And one of the other things we find very, very important is, if people get so far as to begin talking for financing, is understand that other than the financial numbers, most loans or venture capitalists or angel investors, whoever you're talking with, are going to be most interested in what your marketing looks like, how much you're spending of your proposed budget, and also what your exit strategy is. Because if they're investing, they want to know if you're planning to stick with it or sell it. And those 2 issues, in addition to your financing, make the biggest impact.
For sure. And so many of our listeners on Get Down to Business are startups, folks that have really fantastic ideas. I love getting messages where people are telling me about their product or service idea. But beyond the idea, what else should they be thinking about? You've already touched on the networking aspect, tapping your network. What are some of the other things that sort of lead to success beyond just a really good idea?
There are a couple of things that you've got to be able to have if you're starting to approach, whether it's financing or you're actually talking to people about investing, even family members. And one of the things they want to know for sure is your product real? This what they call the formal concept. Is it been implemented? We have one gentleman that came. I'm in a nonprofit as a mentor for many years for startups. And one of the things that we find, it's the same series of problems that new small businesses have, which is why our book is also very relevant for new businesses that are, let's say, a mom and pop grocery store or a new kind of bicycle store is they're not looking at the market. They're not looking at longer term financing. They're not studying where the economy is. And for example, just because we're in a kind of odd economy right now, there are real opportunities. But does your product fit in? Who do you know, even casually, that you could talk to about where they see the economy and where they see your proof of concept fitting in? Those are really critical things. Take advantage of the people that you know and make sure you're building relationships.
Yeah, that's for sure. And that's the area where I'm most passionate about, which is on the marketing and selling side of things. And I know
Right.
you say in your book, which again is called The Revenue Accelerator, the 21 Boosters to Launch Your Startup. I'm chatting with Dr. Allan Colman, the author. This book came out back in August. You said that there's some myths that are out there. So let's become the myth busters over here. How did some of those myths impact an early stage venture? What are some of the things that you frequently hear about?
Well, one of the things that people may not realize is that there are so many different ways to market. We often hear from people, well, I'm going to market to no matter who my customers are, I'm going to use the same marketing tactics. There are probably more than, well, we list 30 different marketing tactics in the book, from simple permission marketing to invisible marketing. And one that you're probably familiar with because I know you have an Army background is force multiplier. It's oftentimes better to try to reach the same industry or the same prospect with more than one approach to marketing. And so those are the kinds of things that we try to make sure people understand, and understand where you can succeed, and the fact that you need to use different marketing tactics to attack different marketing resources, different
No question
prospects.
about it. No question about it. So once we've talked marketing, we've talked networking, we've talked about some of the myths. So once a startup new business is underway, I assume it's important for them to keep track of their prospects, leads, and so on. What are some of the tools that you talk about in your book, The Revenue Accelerator, that sort of helps you get started in the right path from day one?
We have a very simple visual funnel, an accelerator funnel that helps people without having the formal software systems to track where their leads are and where they need to move next. I read an article in Forbes about a year ago, and it said 50% of a new business every year should come from your clients and prospects and referrals. And we suggest you make a list of who you have now that are prospects, that are clients or customers, and are referrals. And by the way, referrals go two ways, and a lot of people don't recognize that. You can refer people, and you can have someone refer you. And if you make a list of, let's say, your top 10 referrals, your top 10 customers, and your top 10 prospects, pick 10 of the very best and put them at the top of the funnel and say, okay, I'm going to reach out to these 10 this week, phone call, email, whatever. And as you move people along, you have contacts, you have next calls, you have proposals, you start moving them down the funnel into the narrow end where leads come out and ultimately prospects come out. It's a simple, organized system, especially for new businesses and startups that have so many things going on.
Sure. And in my quick read, the Revenue Accelerator, it looks like it's almost a workbook rather than a read. Was this by design? What's the big message that you're hoping everybody walks away from the Revenue Accelerator?
It is specifically, it's designed to read as a workbook. You're right. As you know, there are questions at the end of each chapter, and they're designed to refresh the reader as to what they've just read and reinforce what we believe are key points. It's also written in a fashion where we don't have theory. It's all tactical and what works and what doesn't work, or what could be tried under certain circumstances. And it ranges. I mean, even we have a chapter on preparing proposals and how different proposals can be written for whoever you're dealing with. And for nonprofits, for example, how are they going to go after grants or donors? Or for new small businesses, let's say have a specific hard product to sell, understand how many times it's going to take you to. There's a figure that came from some research in a book called Business Breakthroughs that says you need
Hmm.
between 5 and 8 contacts to generate business.
Sure.
That tells you a big story that people have to understand.
Well, I've certainly learned a lot from our conversation, Dr. Allan Coleman. How can we get in touch with you? How can we learn more about the book and, most importantly, pick up a copy?
The copies are on Amazon. It's now an Amazon bestseller list. I'm very happy to tell you. It's Allan Colman, Colman, no E. And you can find the book or my name on Amazon. Actually, we have a special right now. If you have a Kindle, you can get it for 99 cents.
Oh, well,
My
who doesn't love
company's
a
name is
special?
the yeah, Closers Group. Yeah, and we're on all of the major
Perfect.
social media and websites.
Fantastic. We got to squeeze in a quick break here and get down to business. We'll be right back.